Today, we're going to tackle a question that's right at the heart of buying or selling a home. How do real estate agents actually get paid? We're going to explore a really different model, one that flips the script and focuses on paying for service, not just a percentage of a huge number. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? You're making one of the biggest financial decisions of your life, and the fee for your agent's help isn't tied to how many hours they put in, but to the final sale price of the house. It's just the way it's always been done. But is it the only way? So let's just quickly break down that standard model. It's basically a contingency fee. The agent gets a slice of the pie, usually around 5 or 6%, which then gets split between the buyer's and seller's agents. But, and this is key, only if the house actually sells. This means their paycheck is directly linked to your home's price tag, which can sometimes feel a little disconnected from the actual work they did, right? But imagine this for a second. What if you hired a real estate agent the same way you'd hire a lawyer or a consultant? You wouldn't pay your lawyer a percentage of your company's value. You'd pay them for their time, their advice, and the specific things they do for you. Well, that is the exact idea we're digging into today. And you know what? This isn't just some theory. Let me introduce you to Adonis Estates. They're a real estate brokerage down in upstate South Carolina, and they are putting this exact idea into practice. Their whole business is built around a totally different way of getting paid, and we're about to see exactly how it works. So Adonis Estates calls their model a fee-for-service approach. It's a pretty simple concept, really. Instead of one big commission that's supposed to cover everything, they've unbundled the entire real estate process. It's more like an itemized invoice than a single giant percentage fee. In a fee-for-service model, you, the client, are paying for specific actions. Simple as that. You need someone to coordinate an inspection? Okay, that's a service, and it has a fee. You need your home listed on the MLS. That's another service with its own fee. The bottom line is, you only pay for what you actually use. And the analogy the company uses to explain this is just perfect. Think about lawyers. They say the traditional model is like a lawyer working on contingency. They only get paid a big percentage if you win the case. Adonis Estates, on the other hand, is like a lawyer who just bills you for their time and their expertise, win or lose. It really highlights a fundamental shift in how they think about the job. All right, so how does this actually work in the real world for someone buying or selling a house? Let's take a look. It all starts with this a la carte menu of services, which puts you, the client, in the driver's seat when it comes to what you need and what you're going to pay for. So here's a quick look at what they bring to the table. You've got this itemized menu where you pick and choose. And this isn't some new kid on the block either. The company's backed by a professional with more than 2 decades of experience, not just as a licensed real estate broker, but as a general contractor too. Right now, they're focused on just 6 zip codes in South Carolina. Okay, the theory is cool, but in real estate, let's be honest, it's all about the numbers. So let's look at a couple of real-world examples from Adonis Estates to see how this fee-for-service model actually hits the bottom line. First, from the buyer's side. Okay, so for our first case study, we've got a buyer in Taylors, South Carolina. They're looking for a home around the $305,000 mark. And these aren't just casual lookers. They're serious, committed buyers who know exactly what they're after. Now, this is where it gets really clear. You can see every single thing this buyer used, from the 7 different home showings to coordinating with the lender and the inspectors. Each service has its own fee per use. You add it all up, and the total bill for their agent services comes out to exactly $4,400. It's totally transparent and directly tied to the work that was done. Now hold on, because here is the real kicker. In most deals, right, the seller offers a commission to the buyer's agent, let's say 3%. On a $305,000 house, that's about $9,000. So Adonis Estates collects that commission, they take out their $4,400 fee, and then they give the rest, $4,600, straight back to the buyer at closing. That's real cash they can use for closing costs or whatever they want. Okay, so what about the other side of the transaction? Let's flip the script and look at a seller in Greer, South Carolina. Their home is valued at around $417,000, and they're looking to sell sometime in the next year. For a seller, the menu of services is going to look a bit different, obviously. It's going to include things like doing a market analysis, getting professional photos taken, listing the home on the MLS, and all of the marketing. Here, you can see the services are grouped into categories, and the grand total for the seller to use Adonis Estates came to $7,800. So, how does that number stack up against the old way? Well, a typical 6% commission on that $417,000 home would cost the seller about $25,000. With add-on estates, the seller pays their $7,800 fee, and then they'd probably still offer a commission to the buyer's agent, say 2–3%. But even with that, their total cost is around $20,000. That's a savings of thousands of dollars. This all sounds pretty compelling, I know, but is this fee-for-service model really a good fit for absolutely everyone? Well, the company itself is really clear that no, it isn't. So let's break down who this approach is actually built for. According to Add-on Estates, their perfect client is somebody who's serious. They're committed. They're not just tire kicking or testing the waters. I mean, it makes sense, right? Since you're paying for services as you go, you don't want to rack up a bill if you aren't really ready to make a move. And it's also worth pointing out that since the fees are fixed, they'll represent a higher percentage of the deal on a less expensive home. And I think this quote from the company says it all. They are not out here arguing that agents aren't valuable. In fact, it's the total opposite. They say a great agent is worth their weight in gold. Their whole point isn't to devalue the profession, it's just to rethink how that value gets calculated and paid for. So really, the big takeaway is this. The fee-for-service model isn't trying to be a replacement for the entire real estate industry. It's about creating a choice. It gives a transparent, itemized alternative for those clients who are serious, who get the process, and who'd rather pay for specific actions instead of a bundled percentage. And that leaves us with a really big question for the whole industry. While Add-on Estates is just one brokerage in one market, the idea they're pushing is part of a much bigger conversation about transparency and value. So, could this be a little glimpse into the future of how we all buy and sell homes? I guess only time will tell. Thanks for joining me.